Just a heads up, the link hadn't come into my inbox yet, so it's good that we put that in the chat.
Still not coming to your inbox, huh?
I don't see it. But I'm not at the mothership, so I know it takes a little longer to go when I'm working from home.
Let's see. Yeah, I just does not work. Okay, let me keep trying. Yeah, Ripple, I haven't gotten the new link yet either in my inbox.
What? You're already on the call, Nancy.
And I know, but that's because you sent me one directly, but I don't have the other link. Let's see.
We just want to make sure people are getting it.
Isn't this the new link that we're on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're the hardcore people that stayed on throughout versus, if people are coming back to the 1:30, they may not have gotten it out of the chat.
Ripple, you may have to send it again because I'm still not seeing it in the inbox.
On it now.
So Nancy, do we want to go on and move forward, or do you want to wait a couple more minutes? Because I'm still not seeing the link.
I just got it again.
Well, that's a good sign if you got it. So we can let's see what time it is. We'll give another minute or two, but Molly, and then I'll officially introduce you.
And Molly, I also posted the document in the chat, so it's already available to everyone.
Thank you so much.
It kind of feels like the build up, right? The build up before the Hey Nancy, you still there? I think I'm going to go on and get started, and people can just kind of catch up with us. My name is Leslie Vashon. I am the Vice President for VALHSO, and I welcome you to this afternoon session. I am thrilled to introduce Molly Harlow. She is Assistant Director for the Virginia Institute for Government at the Weldon Cooper Center for Public Service. She's also an awesome human being and teacher dedicated to supporting human service leaders in Virginia. And those of you that have ever been to SEI, which is I always have to look, Senior Executive Institute, or LEAD, which is Leading Education and Development, you'll know what I'm talking about with Molly and her skills at teaching us and pushing us to be better. And if you haven't gone to it, we'll provide some information in the chat, but it's a wonderful leadership training program for local government. And I just recently went into it in December, and it was worth the week. It was awesome, and I suggest that you guys, think about it. So today we've been talking about workforce, and obviously there's different stages. First of them, we got to recruit people, right, and find the right people and get them in the door, but then we want to keep them. We want to retain them. And today we're going to be, Molly's going to be talking about psychological safety, which really does connect to the retention part of it, because what it does is it talks about how we make our culture, like our work culture, a safe place that people want to not only stay but thrive. So on that note, take it away, Molly.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Psychological Safety, How to Design a Resilient Workforce. I'm really excited and delighted to be with you all here today. That was such a lovely welcome, Leslie. Thank you. And also a special thanks to Ben for helping me to understand more about the work you all do in human services. I think Leslie covered my bio pretty thoroughly, and I don't want to add a whole lot more than I've been doing this kind of work in leadership development for local government folks for 20 years, and it's really safe to say it's my passion. And a part of that is our LEAD and SEI programs that Leslie talked about. These are really kind of the premier programs for local government folks for leadership development, and they're really designed by and for those of you in the profession. So as part of that, we recently went through an overhaul with our curriculum, and that led us to add psychological safety to it. And we did this because we have long embraced at LEAD and SEI teaching our participants to create trusting and safe environments. And we primarily have done this through the practice of shared vulnerability. But we found that we needed more, that it was not enough to be vulnerable with each other. We needed behaviors that created and encouraged workplaces that embraced employees bringing their full selves to work. And psychologically safe cultures that are resilient cultures, these are the ones that embrace the full human, the synergy and the flow of that work is rewarding and creates better performance, happier, healthy employees, and ultimately better outcomes for those we serve. So that was our motivation to have this piece. And part of the reason I think Leslie felt it fit well with the theme this afternoon about resilient workforces, and especially with workforce challenges. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, sorry, I've got a couple of windows open here. Bear with me. Hopefully you all are seeing that. Somebody give me a shout if you're not. Okay.
We do see it.
Thank you, Leslie. So just quickly, some learning goals for today. We're going to learn more about what does it mean, what does psychological safety mean, why it's so important in today's workplace. We're going to talk about this model of the 4 stages and how they can create resilient workplaces that support retention and recruitment. Learn about some strategies that go along with this, including some ones that you can use in virtual settings. And then hopefully you'll come away with an action plan where you've found some steps and behaviors within the presentation today that you can take back and use in your work environments. So Peter Drucker famously said, culture eats strategy for breakfast, and I say lunch and dinner and everything else. So proper strategy, right, that creates the rules for playing, but culture kind of determines the way the game is played. So because recruitment and retention are such a big struggle right at the moment, especially in helping professions like human services, something you all know, A lot of the data that's coming about the causes of these workforce shortages is fascinating, and I really encourage you, if you haven't, to take a look at some of this. I'm going to include a document in my materials that kind of goes through some of these reasons for it that are really eye-opening, I thought. So these strategies now for retention and recruitment have to be designed to really make organizations employers of choice, right? So that's competitive salaries, definitely hybrid work, but more importantly, it's this healthy work culture, resilient work culture that is psychologically safe. So we know work culture includes all of these things, right? Values, attitudes, morals, beliefs, all the things that make an organization what it is. The characterization of the organization and its members. And so a positive work culture is a resilient one, and it's paramount to retention and recruitment. And psychological safety is our most valuable measure of a positive work culture. So I just want to say just a minute more about the data. So the data is also telling us that we'll no longer have a ready-made workforce that has just the right education, experience, skills that we need. And so we'll have to embrace employees that we are willing to train and educate to do the work that needs to be done. So this is going to make programs like the ones we run for LEAD and SEI even more important, especially as localities are taking on this burden of preparing staff to be efficient and effective. So I just want to leave you couple of real quick thoughts on that one still. Psychological safety environments are these ones that are paramount, right, for retention and recruitment. But the culture matters, and it starts with leaders. It starts with you all. And so the second piece of that thought is to leave you with that we'll really have to make an investment going forward in training our new employees. So that's kind of my little forecasting piece for you all, and I base it lots on lots of good people who actually do that for a living, but just to mention that. So let's get into this. What is psychological safety? So organizational behavioral scientist Amy Edmondson of Harvard first introduced this concept in team psychological safety. She defined it as a shared belief held by members of the team that it is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. So you can see in the quote here, which I know is a little hard to read, that it's a belief that you won't be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, concerns, questions, or mistakes. So when we talk about the 4 stages definition, the 4 stages of psychological safety with Timothy Clark, he defines it as an environment of rewarded vulnerability. And it's the foundation of performance. So it's really the lubricating oil of collaboration. So nothing's more important. Your team can have everything else, clear vision, strategy, resources, brilliant people, but if it's not psychologically safe, those people can't work together effectively. So what happens in psychologically safe environments is people respond in an offensive way, meaning they engage in their work without fear, and they release discretionary efforts and try to do their best. And we could all use a bit more of that most days. If it's not safe, if the environment doesn't feel safe, it means that people will hold back or withdraw. They'll manage their personal risk, and more importantly, they'll freeze discretionary efforts. So people that don't feel safe won't work as hard, and they won't be as committed to organizations. So I feel like for human services in particular, there's a very clear why for your work. But the nature of your work really demands that everyone tries to do their best for the clients and community members. So I just want to highlight a couple of these here. There are some very real costs for psychological safety. Things like decreasing quality of work, performance decline, commitment to the organization decline, and even ones that left because they have uncivil treatment, unsafe environments. And I want to add to this piece that psychological safety can come in the form of social rejection quite often. And I like to use the example of middle school. So social rejection creates symptoms that are similar to physical pain in us. And so if you think about middle school, in my mind, is one of the least psychologically safe environments probably. And you want to sit with the cool kids and you're not included, you're not part of that crowd, then your body will react as though you've been injured. You may well up or have tears, or your stomach may hurt. And that's very much the response to this lack of psychological safety that's very much both costly in terms of performance and keeping people in jobs, but also just as us to human beings. So a couple more notes on this, some real numbers. So 33% of an employee's salary is the average when they leave us. And then this one, I like 75% of the reasons people leave, we can prevent. We have some say in this. And then this decrease in retention, right, for employees who aren't comfortable giving upward feedback. And that's sort of the core of psychological safety, that there's safety in giving that upward feedback. Some of these benefits that I think are particular to the environment of human services are this idea that it reduces stress and mitigates burnout while increasing resiliency. So this is due to the fact that when employees feel safe at work, they're more likely to voice those concerns early on and get support. And then that prevents minor problems from becoming major ones. And employees that are not stressed and burned out are more resilient. This equitable workplace, right? We want everyone to feel a part of that, to feel valued. So in particular, minorities often feel unable to speak up at work, especially about experiences of bias. A study recently found that 38% of Black professionals feel that it is never acceptable at their workplace to speak out about their experiences of bias. In this respect, psychological safety helps people to feel empowered to speak up and out. So it plays this vital role in building these more equitable workplaces. And then retention. High levels of psychological safety are strongly correlated with increased retention. So we've talked about what psychological safety is. So what is it not? So it's not just being nice. It's not that someone's personality is more psychologically safe than someone else's. It's not a word for trust. This goes beyond trust. It's not that we lower our standards or we don't expect accountability and performance. Those are all a part of psychological safety. Oops. Sorry, folks. I like this graph a little bit because it does show that the optimal zone for learning and performance is when we have both high psychological safety and high accountability or standards. So it's really that sweet spot of both pieces that create that psychologically safe environment. So I want to get into the model now, the 4 stages model that was created by Timothy Clark. So this is a little kind of preview of the stages that go from inclusion safety to challenger safety here. And you can see this on the graph as a function of respect and permission. So you think of yourself kind of building up to the top of the stages, that's up to the challenger safety. And as you go, it's more respect for people and more permission to do. So those are the 2 things that really get you to up the scale, say, of psychological safety, or up the stages. So I have to confess, I can't see any of you all. I'm not sure if I have an option to make that any better. I don't, so let me go back to that. My apologies. All right, can you all see that full screen again?
No.
No. Okay. Thanks. I don't work with teams all the time, so I find it a little difficult. There we are. Hello. Hi, everybody. Now I can see your faces. Let me go back to that. Okay. Aha. Now we're back. Okay. So it's disconcerting, just I'm going to say not to be able to see anybody. So I'm going to assume you're with me unless I hear otherwise. Feel free to speak up. Stop me. So when we're talking about this, I want to kind of give you some brief overview of the stages, and then we're going to dive a little more into each one and then do some activities related, those breakout rooms I've been promising you all. So if we're talking about, excuse me, this first stage, this is the inclusion safety. So this satisfies our basic human need to be included, accepted, and belong. We can bring our full selves. It's not expensive to be ourselves. We're accepted for who we are, including our unique and defining characteristics. Learner safety, which is the next stage, is about the basic human need to learn and grow. In this stage, you feel safe in the learning process, asking questions, giving and receiving feedback, experimenting, even making mistakes. Then as you move up to the next level, contributor safety, So this satisfies our basic human need to make a difference. Probably something that's really a part of human services. So you feel safe in this stage to use your skills and abilities to offer meaningful contribution. And then the very top is the stage 4 challenger safety. And so this is where we satisfy the basic human need to make things better. We feel safe in this stage to speak up, challenge the status quo when we think there's a need or an opportunity to improve. So this is where innovation really occurs in that top challenger safety. So I want to just dive a little bit more into inclusion safety. So each of the stages here are based on a social exchange where each party kind of identifies what they need to do to create psychological safety for that stage. In the first stage, in inclusion safety, the social exchange is pretty simple. An individual only has to be human and not present any threat of harm, and in exchange for that, they're included. So this one is everybody, right? Everybody's included unless there's an obvious threat of harm. And in this social exchange, it's based on this principle that worth precedes worthiness. I would imagine that resonates with the work you all do. Worth precedes worthiness. That means that we grant each other inclusion based on our inherent and intrinsic worth as human beings. Worthiness, on the other hand, means that we may grant or withhold inclusion based on our judgment about someone's worthiness. So sometimes we mix these up, and we do that and put worthiness before worth. We can create sort of division and arbitrary distinctions among people. So we always are trying to strive for worth preceding worthiness. So I'm getting ready to have you all go into a breakout on this one. And I'm hoping, Rapal, that you can make sure that people are able to get to that behavioral guide handout in the chat.
It is in the chat. And
Thank you. So for this one, what I'd like to do is, Rapal has got our breakout rooms all set up. Thank you so much. I'm shooting for 4 people, but you could be 3 or 5 depending on how many are here. So using that handout, there's a whole section. It's a wonderful handout. I'm glad he's emailing that to you all, and I'll make sure you get it as well. There's a whole section for each of the levels of psychological safety. So with this one, I'd love for you all to take a look at the behaviors under inclusion safety. And then I'd like you to pick a couple of behaviors that you personally feel like you could improve or start. And then when you go to the breakout rooms, I want you to talk to each other about how you would use those behaviors at work, what that could look like. You could even try them out on each other. I think role play can be kind of fun, although maybe tougher in a virtual environment. And as you think about this, think about ways in which these would also be useful in your virtual environment. So when you're talking about meetings or other interactions where you're in that virtual space as well. So hopefully that makes sense to you all. I invite you all to take a few minutes and look at that guide. I'm going to ask Rapal to go ahead and open the rooms. Feel free to take a few minutes to look at those things before you start sharing with each other. And I'm going to put about 15 minutes on this. So about 15 minutes for you to be in the room with each other, looking over the handout, and then talking about how you'll do this. And then I'm going to want to hear from some folks when we come back to the big room together.
okay, everyone should be in the room now.
So everybody's headed to the breakout rooms now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Are we included? Because I'm not. I haven't seen anything about a breakout.
Nor have I.
I have not either.
And I don't know about the handout either.
Handouts in chat.
Rooms are opening. Give it a minute, it's a little slower. Tareka, just stay with me. I'm gonna put you in one of the room. Oh. Hi, everyone's in a breakout room. If you can just stay there, I'll put you in one of the rooms.
Thank
to
you. I've
join
been
them.
trying to get to one, but I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So thank you.
That's okay. You can stay there. I'll try to put you in a room. Okay.
Thank you.
Hello. Someone just said
They don't have the handout.
they don't have handout.
I'm happy to jump into each room for a minute and share my screen and show them at least a page of it. And then I can figure out how to do that going forward for the presentation if you want. Do you think that would be worthwhile?
Sure. I'm
Can
not
I-
sure why they.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure why they're having difficulty because most people says they do. Emails, I do understand because sometimes emails can take a long time to get to people.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah, but go ahead if you want to share your screen with them. That's fine. You're back.
I'm sorry, Paul. It doesn't work like Zoom where you can just leave a room and come back. So it wants to put me back in room 2, and I already shared with them. Is there any way you can send me to like room 6? I know I heard they needed some help.
Room 6. Okay, so
We
room
have
6.
4.
Okay.
I don't know how I'll get back to you. I may have to leave and come back in again, just so you know.
That's okay. I can just do this. That's not a problem. Okay.
Thank you.
Sign. Someone else did that too accidentally. She didn't know, but she just unassigned herself. Okay. And assign. You said room number 10?
6, I thought someone's.
6. Okay.
If you know of others, though, if you're getting them, I'll come back in and you can tell me where to go.
Sure.
Should I? Is it time? Should I hit join room now?
No, you don't worry about it. I just put you in, so it will take you there now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, how was it? You're on mute.
It was fine, except that then my Teams froze and I had to force quit. So I think
Okay.
maybe we should just invite them to come on back.
Are we ready?
Yeah, why don't we invite them to come on back, and
Okay.
I'll try to share a little and we'll do a quick kind of conversation in the room. And then in the next one, I'll do a better job of flashing up those. And I'm only going to do 2. I was only going to do 2 of these, but maybe I won't even do any more of all. So.
That's okay. We can try. I mean, we'll ask everybody how was their experience to learn from them what happened, and that way we'll know. All right, let me bring them back.
Thank you. Watching that number of people come up as you all come back from breakouts. Like you got a hook wrapped around you and dragged off the stage and back in this room, right?
That was a quick 15 minutes. I can't believe 15 minutes went by so quickly.
Not 15 minutes. It was only about 10.
Oh,
But a number of people did not get the guide and did not have a way to look at the behaviors that I referenced. And so I wanted to bring you all back and sort of maybe rectify that a little bit or figure out a better solution going forward. So. Paul, is that everybody? Should I be waiting?
Yes, all the rooms are closed, so everyone should be out now.
And I think what happened if you were like me, when I tried to do this and come in and out of rooms, every time I hit leave, it didn't leave the room, it left the Teams altogether. Whew. I'm not a Teams user and I'm learning so much and growing more resilient by the moment. Thank you all for your patience with me as this happens today. So my apologies. I did not realize that the guide wouldn't come through so clearly. And so I'd love to just take a minute and invite anyone who did have a chance to talk about this a little bit to share a behavior they want to try to put in place. And then when we do the neck, we're going to do another breakout, but we're going to keep referring to that guide, and I'm going to do a better job of sharing my screen so you all can take a look at that just to make sure everybody's getting to see it. So I'd like to ask then, is there a couple people that might be willing to share a behavior they picked they want to work on?
I will, Molly.
Thank you.
We were fortunate. I'm Tay Lane. I am the Administrative Service Coordinator with the Department of Human Services and the City of Newport News. I was fortunate to have Molly in our group, so we got to see the list. One of the things that was on the list was one, introducing yourself first, being proactive. I got that one. And number two was getting to know individuals' name and learning to pronounce them. My name is already difficult, and I also struggle with pronouncing other individual names. So that is one of my things that I will be working on is learning to better enunciate others' names and learning their name. Because I'm better with faces, but this is going to be a new challenge that I'm going to work on.
Thank you so much for sharing, Tay. How about one more? Linda, I see you raised your hand. Linda Bell?
Yes. So for me, it was listening and pause, because I'm actually pretty good at listening, but my mind is racing 900 miles a minute. I work in Child Protective Services, so I'm always going to the next question in my head or trying to figure out safety. And I definitely don't pause as long as I should.
That is a common one and hard to do. Yep, definitely. Thank you, Linda. Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen and move us on to the next stage, which is learner safety. All right, so briefly, learner safety, this is the one that satisfies our basic human need to learn and grow. So you feel safe in the learning process, asking questions, giving, receiving feedback, experimenting, and even making mistakes. So the social exchange here is that the encouragement to learn is given in exchange for the engagement to learn. All that means is that as a leader, you'll encourage your staff and yourself to learn, and then in exchange, those folks will learn. They will be a part of that process. They will take on the initiative to grow and to learn. So in this case, the leader will go first, right? The encouragement to do these things, to explore more things, will be important, and then supporting that learner in the learning process. So in workforce development going forward, we know that we must be learning organizations. This must be one of our fundamental things, is to increase our ability to learn so that we can adapt more quickly. So a couple of notes here. When doing this, I'm going to go to the instructions, but we're not going to go to breakouts yet. So when doing this, it's important that the leader kind of models this vulnerability piece first. This is asking questions, admitting mistakes, saying, I don't know. And so when you have that leader doing that, it really encourages everyone else to take more learning risks. They see that the leader is vulnerable as well. And then encouragement, right? This is supporting your team. What do you need to learn? Motivate them to build their confidence and help convince them to try things they might not normally do. And then to protect them. When they take a risk and they make themselves vulnerable, you're rewarding their vulnerability. So you do this consistently, and then what happens is your team members are more likely to be more courageous and more self-directed in their learning efforts. So I'm gonna stop sharing this one and go to the behavior guide, hopefully. And we'll look at these. So this time I'm going to give you guys like 3 or 4 minutes to kind of look at the behaviors. I'll probably be only able to display the first page, or I'll do that and then I'll try to scroll down. And then I'll ask you to go back into those breakout rooms and talk with each other about what kind of behaviors you want to work on and how you can see yourself doing those and how you'll do them in a virtual space. So let's pull up that stages guide. If you have the guide, then you are a lucky few and you don't have to worry so much about watching my screen at this point. Okay, so when we're talking about learner safety here, so I can only do a few at a time, so I'm going to give this about a minute and then I'll scroll it down. If you find one you like, just make a note if you're not going to be able to refer back to that guide so you can talk about it.
Molly, I do want to just interrupt real quick and say that Ripple posted the document again in the chat. So if people go to the chat, they will hopefully be able to click on the link that he posted and pull that up.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay. All right. Hopefully that gave you enough of a start so that we can go back in those breakouts and you guys can talk to each other. And maybe with the posting of the document again, a few more of you will be able to open and access that. So let me go back to my PowerPoint. These are the same kind of instructions. You'll be with the same group of people as last time. I feel like it's important to be talking to those folks so you can support each other. And so you're going back in, you're going to share the behavior you picked and talk about how you're going to put that into practice at work and maybe even try it out if it seems reasonable in that space. So we're going to give you guys about 10 or so minutes, 10 or 12 minutes to do this. So that is about 10:22. So that's when he'll close those rooms and you'll be pulled back with that hook. All right, folks. So Ripple, whenever you're ready, if you don't mind opening those rooms and sending folks in them for 12 minutes, 2:22. Thank you.
Leslie, just bear with me one more minute. I will put you in a room.
Okay, thank you. I'm kind of afraid because last time I got lost.
No, I'll make sure you get a room this time. So I have room number 8, just one person, so I'll do that. So that person will have someone there, maybe one more person there. Okay, so that was one more assigned. LA. Here you go. Gonna put you in the room number 8 as well. All right, here you go. You're going in room number 8. Hi. Everyone's in a breakout room. I'll put you in a room. Just bear with me 2 more minutes. Number 11.
Welcome back. I know the room I was in, Virginia was in the middle of speaking, and so we got the hook. Hopefully that didn't happen to too many of you. I think even the warning here might even be more subtle than it is in Zoom. But I hope those were good conversations and you all had a chance to think about those behaviors a bit more. I would love, again, if there were a couple people who are willing to share behavior they picked in a way in which they're going to try to use that. Feel free to raise your hand or pop on, however works best for you.
Something that I thought I would try more often is one-on-one in their space. I tend to generally meet with people either in my space or a space that is not their space, such as a conference room. And I can see how going to where someone lives, so to speak, can make a difference in their participation and engagement. And there are always people that don't feel comfortable sharing in group settings. And so to the extent that you can sometimes get outside of that, it can be helpful.
Thank you, Ben. That's great. How about one more? Well, there are a lot of you all I can see on my screen from Newport News. Way to go. Way to represent. Maybe a number of you all are all from the same places and I can't see you, but at any rate, thank you.
I can throw
Hi.
one. Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi. James Worsley here in Chesterfield County, Deputy County Administrator here. I had a great conversation with Angela and Vicky, and get names correct. And so, Vicky, I don't want to call you out on the spot if you don't want to talk, but I thought it was very interesting with number 21 when we talked about patience and empathy. I think the consensus was that we all feel that we are empathetic and we share a great deal of empathy, but with COVID and so many major issues that we all face, our patience run very thin when it comes to what one might consider topics that may not rise to the top of prioritization with some of the things like COVID. So I'll pitch it over to Vicky if she wants to add anything else that from her personal perspective.
Thanks.
One of the things that I said, yeah, thanks James for calling me out. One of the things I said that has become an issue with patients is that just like today for me, this meeting is scheduled to go till 3 and then I'm expected to be on another meeting at 3 o'clock. And in the past where you had to make a decision between two meetings because you physically couldn't get from one to the other, during COVID, there's been this shift where you can somehow do more meetings because you don't have to travel. And whereas that's true, it also reduces the time you have that you used to have between meetings to kind of regroup, to think about what you just finished before you jumped into the next thing. And it, for me, it makes my patience a little less, particularly for what one of my staff members might think is an important issue to them, but doesn't necessarily rise to critical for me. And the example I used was, oh, my desk isn't as good as somebody else's desk. And Angela actually suggested that what her group is doing is intentionally scheduling meetings for 45 minutes instead of an hour so that people have that break in between, which is not something that I thought about or would have considered suggesting to people, but I think it's a good idea.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, James. Thank you all for sharing. This is part of the reason I really wanted to hear from you all and you to hear from each other. I think we learn just as much from each other as we do from me, from what I'm going to share with you all. So thank you all. I do want to share and move us into that next stage, that contributor safety stage. I'm just going to say how much I love Teams one more time. Bear with me. There it is. I knew it was here somewhere. All right, folks. So when we're talking about contributor safety, this next level, this next stage of psychological safety, this satisfies the basic human need to make a difference, right? I think this one's going to feel like it's sort of built for the work you all do. We are meaning makers, so in this stage, we feel safe to use our skills and abilities to offer a meaningful contribution. This one's especially important to the younger members of the workforce who don't want to wait years before doing meaningful work. And so the pattern of basic human needs here is that when we learn new things, we want to be able to use what we've learned. It's an instinct, actually. And so not only do we want to use those great things we've learned, but we want to make a meaningful contribution, a meaningful difference with what we've learned. And so when we talk about individual contributors being able to do this in a meaningful way, they develop self-efficacy, self-worth, and the capacity of independent high performance, less oversight. And they're more resilient. They're more resilient when they get to use those skills and knowledge for meaningful work. So when you think about contributor safety at this stage, it's not only about accomplishing the work, but developing our people. And so this one, that social exchange, it's actually based on performance. So this is one where it's not owed like inclusion safety, but you actually earn this one. And the exchange is that the leader gives the individual a measure of autonomy with guidance in exchange for results. So it's based on, you have to kind of earn this continued autonomy if you are doing the work well. So this means that we are telling people what we want to do and what we expect, and then we allow them the freedom to do that. So when we think about this a little bit, before we look at the guide, so this is really about explaining the why during contributor safety. So this taps into motivation. So I think you all know when you have an important why behind what you're doing, it really does motivate us to perform at the highest levels, to release that discretionary effort. And then human services, right? This why is built in, right? You guys change and improve the lives of everyone you meet, every interaction. So, and part of this contributor safety is also the what. What I was talking about here was we want to assign work that it's meaningful, and it's based on the evaluating that the person you assign it to for their strengths and their willingness, right? So that's a part of the what here. And then the delegating the how. So your employees, your staff feel motivated. They understand what the work is and what the goal is, and then delegating the how. So what the psychological safety says about this is if we allow individuals as much discretion as possible to figure out how to get the work accomplished, the how, it transfers more ownership to the individual and empowers them to be more creative and self-directed in completing their work. So I think those are really important things when we're talking about especially a smaller workforce than we have in the past. So I'm going to stop sharing for this, which I finally learned how to do with the button there. And I want to share that behavior guide again for you all. And this time I think I'm trying to think about whether or not, I don't want to do this one as a breakout. I want to give you guys a few minutes to look at that and pick, and then I want to hear from you. I want you all to get to hear from each other. So I'm going to share that guide again. And we're under, if you have your own, then we are under contributor safety. Oh, that's not it. Sorry guys, bear with me. Well, my button stopped working. There we go. Okay. Oh, more practice with teams. Okay, hopefully you're seeing that now. And this is moving into, if you have the guide in front of you, this is moving into contributor safety, into stage 3. So I'm going to try to do what I did before, and so leave up the pages. I'm probably just going to do the first 2 or 3 and try to be quiet. And for you all, as you pick some things, make a note of what you want to do, and then be prepared to share. I want to ask a few people to really share what they would do, for instance, with the clarifying roles or celebrating small wins or any of the things on the list that you think you could work on. That was probably abrupt like a hook too. So hopefully you all had a minute or two to pick a behavior and think about it a little bit. And then I'm going to ask for a few people to share what they picked and what they think they'll do with that. Help us all learn from each other. And I invite you, if you haven't shared, this is your chance. We want to hear from you.
I'll go.
Thank you.
I like the one that said share your work style and communication preferences. Because we all like to communicate differently. For example, my direct supervisor, we like to communicate differently. Like I like sending emails, but she'd rather come down and tell me something versus sending an email. And she shared that with me early on. So now we pretty much know how to communicate with each other. So it's not something that's weird or uncomfortable when she comes in here to tell me something versus emailing it. So I appreciate that.
And do you feel like there's opportunities for you to do that with the people you that work for you too?
I don't have anyone that works for me.
Oh, well then you're getting to do it upwards. That's nice.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. You make a good point, right? We all have a preference. I had a boss that really preferred everything in writing. I would prefer to talk about it, but learning that made our relationship so much better and safer, frankly. Thank you. Other folks that had something they picked they're willing to share?
I can jump in if that's okay. The one that I struggled with was the avoiding, it says avoiding boredom and burnout. I mean, I can't imagine in this environment anybody being bored, but burnout is just such a huge issue with some of the work that my staff has been doing. And so that's something that I just really struggle with. I mean, we do exercise around compassion fatigue and that, but that's a big one.
Do you talk about it, Nancy?
Yeah, we do. And that's important. And when incidents happen, incidents happen, to spend the time to debrief. I was able to get permission to give admin time. I mean, a day of admin time when some, the traumatic incidents happen, so somebody can take the next day off and, have some personal reflection time. So that I found that to be helpful, even regarding burnout, time talking with the team. I mean, it's still a kind of constant kind of a struggle.
We can only imagine. Yeah. Thank you. How about one more? What do you want to work on? What could help make your environment where you are more psychologically safe?
Molly, I don't mind jumping in to help out with the conversation. I want to give a long pause to see if anybody else wants to jump in. So hearing none, I'll be glad to do so. Number 28 on the list, I found to be pretty interesting. It says complement participation from quiet team members. Oftentimes, leaders, we work with a lot of extroverted individuals, and sometimes with the hustle and bustle of getting a meeting and letting everybody speak, we sometimes overlook our introverted friends or colleagues that may have something important to say. So that's one of the things I want to be mindful of. And sometimes, even if it's after the fact, after the meeting, go intentionally to that person to try to find if there's additional information that they may want to share, because great ideas may not necessarily surface up in a meeting through that conversation, but oftentimes, I think if we set the stage, reassure that person that we're here to listen to them, and we can communicate based on how they like to communicate. So if it's through an email, stopping by your office to get information, or the one-on-one, I find it to be very helpful.
Thank you, James. And what a good point to make, right? Like, it may be that you have to do some extra work with folks like that, so they will feel more encouraged to speak up in the main room. So helping them to understand their ideas are welcomed and they are safe to share in that space. Lovely. Thank you all. Thank you all for sharing. All right, I'm going back to my screen share. And I'm going to move us into the last stage, which I jumped a little ahead on. Okay, so if you're thinking about the stages, we have reached the fourth and final stage, the sort of highest one. So following this basic pattern of human needs, what happens at this stage is most people want to improve things. We're driven to make things better, but challenging the status quo in order to make things better is very scary, actually. It's a really big act of vulnerability, and many people won't do it, right? They remain silent and they won't challenge the status quo. If you're thinking about these stages as this ladder of vulnerability, challenger safety is the highest rung on that ladder. It's the highest point of personal vulnerability and risk. And so it looks like this graphic here. When you're having challenger safety, it includes this divergent thinking, this constructive dissent, tolerance for candor, and creative abrasion. So for the patterns of interaction required for this kind of challenger safety, you develop this so that you can innovate. So this is the innovation and problem solving space. When you can get to the point where everyone can speak up and talk about things. And because of that, it's naturally kind of disruptive when we're innovating. So you can see this as that enabling condition to really improve things, systems, processes, relationships. So it's a little different from some of the others. It's air cover in exchange for candor. I kind of like that because it creates a fun picture in my head. But in other words, if you want me as your employee to challenge the status quo, if you want my candid feedback, you'll need to protect me as a leader or team members as I engage in that act of vulnerability. If I think you're not going to protect me, if I don't feel safe, I'm not going to challenge the status quo. Instead, I'll retreat back into that personal risk management place where I reduce my commitment and my discretionary effort. If you tie this is back to that 16% decrease in retention for employees who aren't comfortable giving upward feedback. It becomes incumbent upon those that are in positions, especially of authority, to create this kind of safety for folks. It's like the idea of this is the space we need to solve problems, and we can't solve them from the same kind of thinking that created them. So I just want it for a second, this visual picture here. So this is kind of the way to show the job of a leader when it comes to creating and sustaining challenger safety. So as a leader, you're creating this, you're increasing the intellectual friction. So, and you're simultaneously decreasing social friction. So the intellectual friction is this raw material of innovation, right? This is dialogue and debate and problem solving and new solutions. And what happens is that when intellectual friction goes up, social friction tends to do that as well. And it's because we're sensitive and emotional people. That's how we're built. And we feel strongly about our opinions and our points of view. And a lot of times as a leader, there's some investment in the status quo. It's worked. It got you where you are, right? So it's often interpreted as a challenge to you personally if you are invested in that status quo. It can create some defensiveness. So just be aware of that. So this is not easy, right? That's why it's the top of this ladder, right? For top of the stages for psychological safety. But the key is about the boundaries of respect. So keeping those in place. So you monitor and manage the social dynamics, and you're not allowing these conversations to become personal or disrespectful. You're keeping it on the problems at hand. So I want to ask you all again to take a look at the challenger safety part of the guide. I'm going to put mine up here. Okay, so if you have the guide, this will be the last bit, the challenger, stage 4 challenger safety. And so the same process as we did for the last one. I'm going to put a couple of these pages up, and then we'll have you all share about your thoughts on how you could create challenger safety where you are. I think some of these are so good, just so you know. Weigh in last. That's also a Brene Brown concept, right? If the leader goes first, then everybody jumps on the bandwagon. I also love the idea of assigning dissent. Having someone in place that sort of is the known one, right, who does this. Okay, on this page, I really love reward shots on goal. Not all things will work, but when somebody takes a shot, right, we want to encourage that. And scope. It doesn't have to be a free-for-all. Okay, hopefully you all had enough time to jot down some notes for yourself, something you want to try within Challenger Safety. So I would invite you all to share. I'd love to hear from some folks about this, things they want to try to take on. There's some fun ones here.
You know, one of the things I was sitting here thinking about is that how as leaders we can say, well, we ask for feedback and we have meetings with people and we put them at the table, but our nonverbals are in action. You know, when people bring up different information, especially that goes against what what your thinking is, that can kill it as much as outwardly saying, I can't believe you just said that. And I think that sometimes that is a challenge, the feedback, the messages we give. And I'm thinking on a virtual it's even harder because you don't get as much of an opportunity beyond during and after the meeting where you go up and you go good job or whatever, like when you're on the screen and your face says something, you really have to really pay attention to following back up with people. I think you have to work even harder.
Thank you, Leslie. Yes, all very good stuff. And those nonverbals, they do come across, right? Even virtually, but really paying attention to them as part of that feedback. Someone else. Anybody gonna assign dissent?
I'll speak up. I think number 33 is great. The come with dumb questions and raggedy solutions. We oftentimes I work for the city of Fredericksburg Department of Social Services, and we do say a lot, come to me with solutions. So to think of it in a different way, it's a little bit, for me to think about this and to think this, come to me with these things that are, maybe a little more risky. But I think it's important for us to take a step back and to say, nothing's off the table, and that, come to it with that, whatever, even if it's not the solution we're looking for, it may have a pathway to that solution. So I think it's important to really kind of think of it and just the way that it's worded, come with those dumb questions and raggedy solutions. So I thought that was a good one, and can be taken to heart, I think, for us, for sure.
Thank you, Beth. That is a really good one. And I saw some people in the chat agreeing with you that they liked that one as well. One of my favorite instructors likes to offer people to just wander aloud, right? So it doesn't have to be your fully formed, perfect idea or solution, but a chance to really kind of just be in that space together and share what's on your mind. And then it can come to a point where you all can get it to that perfect solution, maybe, or that good solution. So thank you. How about one more? If you haven't spoken up, I'm talking to you now. Maybe you're shy. I'm not shy at all. And I want to hear from you. So all that happened is all of you that were willing to speak up and have been speaking up went, I can't anymore. And all of you that still don't want to either. So now anybody, even if you've spoken up before, help yourself.
All right, I was trying to refrain myself from saying anything else.
I love it, James. Clearly engaged with the activity today. Go for it.
It's a good exercise. I'm looking at number 13, create diverse teams. And, it is very interesting. We're in 2022 and we're still having to have this as a point of conversation that this is important for us to create diverse teams. I mean, it's absolutely important. And, but it's also, we recognize that it's not done enough, even in 2022, and particularly on the heels of everything that has taken place over the last 2 years, from George Floyd to Breonna Taylor to Ahmaud, and the insurrection on Capitol Hill, and where we stand today. I mean, it is vital that we create diverse teams in all the aspects of what we do, particularly when we're hiring new staff and so forth and working on projects. So I'm glad to see that it's here, but at the same time, I wish that we were beyond some of these things when it comes to race, diversity, DEI, and those type of things. That it was just, it's a no-brainer. Let's do it.
Thank you, James. You make a good point. And I think that's part of the reason that psychological safety feels important to me too, is we want spaces where no matter who you are, you're welcomed and you're invited to the table and you're a part of those conversations. And the organizations that embrace that culture, that's what happens, right? You do have that happen. And as we hire, right, as we're looking at retention and recruitment, what will we do? How will we get those diverse people in the door? Well, we better have a great culture, right? We better be able to offer that. Thank you for sharing. All right, I'm going to go back and screen share. We're wrapping up. For those of you that are counting down the seconds, let's see. All right, so my little wrap up here. So you all are the cultural architects of your workplace, right? A thought or a pattern of thought or behaviors becomes a habit. When you put that together in a team, it's a norm, and those collection of norms become our culture. So it's our work, right? To create the culture we want, to create the culture that creates psychological safety, that invites people to stay and to work with us and to feel like they can contribute and make a difference. So the single most important factor in this is the modeling behavior of the leader. So as leaders, we have to go first. We have to show people that we're invested in these good cultures, these safe cultures, so that they can feel like they can be a part of that as well. They'll see that happening. It's like being a parent, right? You have to model for your kids the way you would want them to kind of behave in the world. I don't mean that in a parent-child way. I just mean I'm a parent, and that's one of the ways I think about how I model behavior. So I have one exercise I'm going to send you out the door with to do on your own, but I wanted to pause here for any questions before I give you your assignment to go out the door with.
Molly, is this work that you do with teams of, well, I mean, can we contact you to get some assistance with our teams and learning some things about psychological safety? Sure,
I'd be happy to talk with you, share anything I have, and I'm more than happy to work with you if that's what you need. I wholeheartedly believe in this concept, and that's one of the other reasons we made it part of our program curriculum, because it's so important, so vital.
That's awesome.
Thanks for asking, Ben.
This might be a good opportunity also to pitch a little bit more about the program that Leslie actually began to share a little bit about.
Sure.
She participated in.
Thanks, Ben. And Leslie said it better than I ever could, because she has some credibility with you all that I may not, even after all of our time being psychologically safe together today. But I do want to say, so we offer two programs. the LEAD program, that stands for Leading, Educating, and Developing. It's a terrible, terrible acronym, but someday we'll get better. And then our SEI program, which we offer just the last 2 weeks of July. I believe, James, you're going to be joining us for that one this year. And so,
Thank you.
so SEI is usually, so it's designed for sort of top executives, but honestly, anybody who's in a leadership position, we get a number of managers and assistants and city managers, but also some folks from departments that really are driving change in their organizations. But on the other hand, LEAD, that's one we hold 6 times a year. And it's really designed for anyone who's kind of in a supervisory or leadership role within an organization. We even get frontline folks from time to time. And our program is really dedicated to developing people's leadership skills in a holistic way. So there's a lot of personal emphasis, your personal leadership style, your values and what you bring, the way in which you engage with your work, both in terms of whether you're in a department or a unit or in your organization. And so there are pieces in it. Emotional intelligence is one of the pieces that we spend time on. We spend time talking about challenging conversations. This is a new piece we added. So thinking about how we can use some of the steps from Crucial Conversations and this model for being more aware, to be an ally, to be an advocate, working your way up through these stages. We believe the most difficult conversations most people are having now are around equity and inclusion. And so we want to offer tips and tools for doing that. We also do a lot of teams. So you spend time with people, stranger teams, and so you're getting to know them, you're practicing vulnerability, you're sharing, and really you build this smaller community within the larger classroom community that's really invested in you and your development going forward. That's a very quick overview. I invite you to contact me for more information. I'll make sure you all have our websites as well, because there's some pretty good information now about the curriculum and the changes we've made. We think it's really hitting all the high spots right now, and we're also constantly evolving. So one of the things when Leslie and Ben and I talked about this is, Molly, talk more about recruitment and retention as it has to do with psychological safety, and we're doing that too in our program. We want to stay up to date on what's happening in local government and how we can best serve. So that's a very quick overview. So like I said, feel free to reach out to me for if you have more questions. And then as we wrap up today, I want to give you all a homework assignment. When's the last time anybody gave you all a homework assignment? Never, right? High school.
1st of December.
You must be referring to when you were with us, huh, Leslie?
Yep.
Okay, so what I want to ask you all to do is to really write down, what are you going to do first? You know, I'm sure as we went along that you were all taking note of the actions and steps. A lot of you shared them for how you're going to create more psychological safety, but write it down, right? Make it real for yourself, and then talk to people about it. Talk to your team, talk to someone in the conference with you, a peer, a friend, and really make it real so that you can take some of the things you've learned today. That's the whole idea behind these 4 stages, and they're very tactical and behavior oriented, that you can come away with some things you can really put into place right away in your work. So that's my homework assignment for you all. And if I get an opportunity, I'd love to hear how it goes. We'll see. And then, so I'm not going to recap these. Let's just say we got there. And so then I just want to say thank you. This was a delightful opportunity for me to be here with you all. I think that there is no higher calling than local government work. And I think in particular, what you all do is among the highest part of that. And so you don't get told thank you enough. So thank you from me. Thank you from our team. And know that you're seen, that we see you. And we appreciate you, and we value the work you do. Keep doing it. We need you. This world needs you all. Thank you so much for listening to me today and spending the time with me and each other. And I will shut up now, Nancy.
Well, thank you, Molly, for your food for thought, for that wonderful document that you sent. We'll make sure that everybody gets it, and it'll be posted on the website as well, so people will have access to that document. I mean, as I was going through it, I mean, I thought, oh, I've done this stuff lots of times. I mean, I've been through SEI lots of times, but I learned something new. I mean, I learned several new things. So So I do appreciate that, the time that you took with us today. So thank you again. And with that brings us to the close of this wonderful conference. So we've had some really excellent speakers, and Ripple did the recordings, and so we'll post the recordings of the presentations on the website along with the presentations. I do want to say that we will get out an evaluation, and so you'll see that coming from Ripple in the next couple of days. But please help us kind of plan future conferences. And we do have a very brief business meeting that's going to be starting now. It'll just be maybe 5 minutes, so I invite all of you to stay for that meeting. And let's see, I think we have a group here. What I want to do is also invite participation, and anybody here, feel free to contact me or respond to Ripple, and he can get in touch with me. If you're interested in participating on the steering committee, in any of the committees, the legislative committee, conference planning, membership, communication, and any way in what's happening with VALHSO. I mean, this is such a great organization. I get so much out of it, and I hope you do too, and hope what we do can continue to bring value to how you do your jobs and how you go about your lives with what Molly was saying, with some really difficult work and getting through some really difficult times. So please, please do contribute, and do feel free to contact me and let us know what we can be doing. So let's go ahead and go on to the business meeting, and I do want to do a treasurer's report just to give an update on how much we have. And Rebecca, let me turn it over to you to do that.
Yes, hello. And I'm actually going to share my screen if that's okay, because I was able to download a copy of our most recent account balance. So I thought this would be the easiest way to let everybody know this is what we have in our account. So as you can see, we have a little over $5,000. We are getting a monthly deduction of $5.99, which is for the website upkeep. But that is really the only expenses that are happening right now because of the fact that we haven't asked for member dues yet. And we haven't really had a whole lot of expenses because we haven't been having any in-person conferences and things like that. There is another bill that Leslie actually sent me for the state corporation commission dues that are coming up, but I believe that's like for $25. So again, not a big expense. So I think we're doing okay as far as just kind of, status quo right now, because there's not a lot of expenses. And I do think that how many people have been coming to these conferences means when it is time to go after membership dues, that I think people will see the value. So I think it has been good that we've continued to have a presence, even though we haven't necessarily been in person, but I do think people are recognizing and realizing the value that we do bring, and hopefully they'll put their money where their mouth is when it comes to that. So that's the quick report I have. If anybody has any questions, let me know, but that's the information I have to share.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, great report. Does anybody have any questions about the VALHSO finances? And that's about it as far as our items of business. Does anybody have any comments, questions, anything that they would like to ask me or any other members of the executive committee? All right, well, with that, then let's call it a day. It was great to see you all virtually, and hopefully someday before too long, we'll be able to see each other face to face, and learn even more from our shared experiences. So have a good rest of the day, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.